Okay, wanted to put together a video here for streamers. Wanted to first set up the ending result. This is kind of an option that a few streamers have been asking about. I got things pretty simplified here at the moment. A lot going on, so I'm just going to kind of go over everything. But just to show you the concept here is I'm pushing the buttons on an N64 controller, and you can see that PlayStation's interacting. You can also see over here on the PC that it sees the movement. So anything that I move on the controller will show up on both the PC and the PlayStation at the same time. Okay, so that said, just kind of an overview here. On the PlayStation itself, you would need a bridge to do this. The bridge is basically going to take the ecosystem signal that we have in our equipment and allow that to work on a console. You're not limited to PlayStation. We support virtually every console and adding more all the time. In the middle here, we have a thing called a blender. And as you can see, I have 4 in and 4 out. I'm going to upset the PC by touching it there, but that basically allows 2 inputs and 2 outputs. And then the Gamer Pro Advanced here is the input from the controller. So what happens is the controller sends a signal to this Gamer Pro. That goes to the blender. Only 1 input's required. I just have 2 hooked up. Then the blender will send it out in 2 directions, 1 to a PC and then 1 to a console, or 2 consoles, or 2 PCs, or whatever it is that you want to use this thing on. Once that signal is separated, you can use 2 devices at once. You're not going to have lag, which is obviously a question on a lot of people's minds. That's simply because the understanding of lag is very, very complicated and nobody really understands how it works. But in the simplest sense, one of these devices are sending a pulse signal, either the console or the PC. In this case, the PC is sending a pulse signal. The console would do it once a frame rate, which is about 16 milliseconds apart. So if you're a gamer and somebody told you your lag is 16 milliseconds, you're going to look at them like they're crazy. But that's what consoles do. So they're not crazy, you're crazy. You just don't understand how it works. I'm not going to go into more detail. You can research that on your own. But no, there's no lag. That's completely irrelevant here. Okay, lastly, what do you need to do to get this? You would need these 3 devices. You'd want to set the bridge up for consoles, which I have it connected to the PlayStation, so it's got the console firmware. You definitely want to update your Gamer Pro, make sure it has the latest code on it. And the blender comes as is. So basically the blender's saying you can give me a signal from a controller and I'll split it into 2. You can also have 2 controllers and they'll work at the same time. If both of them have analogs and you're fighting the analog position, then the one on the left is going to override. But buttons can be pressed at the same time. So 2 users could use separate controllers and control just 1 device. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Now I'm going to add a few more parts of this video here to go into detail about certain things that some people may want to know and others may not. So if you're looking to do something kind of like this, here's a very simple setup. I will get into details about the gamepad viewer and things of those natures where you might want to show the overlays on a computer screen, but we'll get to that next. Okay, so as far as the electronic concept here and what's going on and what you need to know, USB will not work if you have these devices have power. So if my PlayStation here is hooked up, which it currently is receiving power, you can plug this thing into a USB. It's not going to be able to work. USB doesn't work that way. So you'll have to unplug the power to the PlayStation. Then you can plug it into your PC and it'll show up and work. All right, so here we have it working. Now, both of these devices are DC devices. DC doesn't work the same way that alternating current does. The way that the voltage is figured out and the way that all these electronics function is a difference of potential. So if the ground line is set to a certain voltage, the power line is going to be your voltage on top of that. So let's say the ground is 1 volt, then you're aiming for a 5 volt system, then your target would be 6 volts, right? So 1 minus 6 is 5. That's where you get your 5 volts from. people think of ground as 0, and you should, because that's the easiest way to do calculations. But in the real world, that's not really how that works. This device has decided, okay, my ground is at this potential, and my hot lead or my +5 lead or whatever must be plus the voltage I'm looking for. So these two could disagree, and that will happen. And the way to resolve that, an easy way to resolve that, is to tie your grounds together. So you're going to run into that situation, and the best way to avoid that, I think that works well, is if you just have your bridge disconnected. So it's into the console. Go ahead and plug it in. Now that bridge has power, and he's looking for a controller. And then when you go ahead and connect this to the blender, the ground potentials will be the same, and that's going to be your best chance of having it work on both the console and the PC at the same time. You can also do things like you can jump the grounds together and things of that nature, but especially when you're dealing with laptops and batteries, you're going to have ground potential issues. So I just kind of wanted to cover that, just so you're aware that if things don't work correctly, you might have a difference of potential there with your ground. It's not going to cause any harm to the hardware, but you definitely want to find a way to get that resolved if you run into problems. All right, another thing that's going to be on a lot of streamers' mind is these overlays for the gamepads. So short answer, they're not going to work very well. They're designed for your modern controllers, PS4, Switch, 360, those kind of things. And those controllers don't use the old mechanism like this. This is the way that things used to be, all the way back until Windows 95. This was a standard that was invented that worked for everybody. The main axis was here. The secondary axis was the X and Y rotation. And then this one doesn't have it, but dial and slider could be other options. And then you had your Z-axis, which usually were your triggers on the on the back of the controller. And then, of course, you had all your buttons. Now, everybody knows buttons aren't going to be uniform. It's just not going to happen. So this thing is designed to be a uniform controller. You could put this adapter in X input mode and things would work, but then it's not going to work on the console, and X input has its own slew of issues. So what I wanted to demonstrate here is that, yeah, I mean, the inputs work, but the mapping isn't going to be right. Here, my L and R are correct. The start is not correct. The face buttons are mostly correct. Looks like all 4 in that case. 2 of my extra buttons are over here. And the D-pad isn't working. It's a complete mess. Now, the software for this, I contacted the author. Apparently, he went MIA. And that he's not really the guy a person would have to get in touch with to fix this. It's the core library. It was never designed to support a normal HID device. So my advice with this is you're going to have to use some sort of mapper. There's a lot of tools out there that will do that kind of stuff. And there's going to be some effort involved there. You can't map the device because then it's not going to work on the console. The whole ecosystem is designed to understand the mapping. So don't think that you can just redo the mapping and everything's going to work. You'll have other problems. The issue, the bug, the problem is pretty much arrogance. People think that modern is the way to go. You never use any old hardware. That's fine to think that way, but then don't use old equipment or equipment that was designed years ago or whatever have you. But this setup is designed to work for all the old emulators. There's a good reason for all that. If you want it to work on modern hardware, you would have to switch to X input mode. In that case, this would work, but then you shot the whole ecosystem away. So, I mean, you got to think about where the problem is at. And the problem is the software. It was not written for every device in the world. Any device that follows this paradigm isn't going to work. Most of those devices aren't in the market anymore today, but some examples would be Raphnet. Raphnet isn't going to work. Older USB adapters aren't going to work. Any of your Gravis USB adapters, they're not going to work. Your old GameCubes, your old Game Port, Game adapters, those aren't going to work. It's just the software wasn't designed for this. Now, I've tried a lot of them, and they all do the same thing. So they all copied everybody. Everybody used one source, and then they just kind of shared it, which is also very common for, in my opinion, arrogant people. that think they know everything and they don't want to take the time and understand how to do it themselves. So if somebody actually tried, this would be a very simple concept to achieve. And I'm trying to find some source that's out there that somebody could use and make it work properly. So that's kind of an ongoing effort I'll be looking into a little bit to see if we can find some better options. But I wanted to just inform everybody that this isn't going to work like you think it's going to work. Not with this setup. Unless you use some sort of mapping like XPattern or the I think it's X output or something like that. There's a bunch of little tools out there that you can remap, but you'd have to do that for every controller you use. So it'd be kind of a pain. But sorry for that little long rant there, but I just wanted to cover those bases so that you know what you're getting into.